Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload, and I always believed trust was the foundation of marriage. For over 12 years, I had been faithful to my wife, Emma. We built a home, shared laughter, supported each other through life's storms, and raised a son together. Or at least, that's what I thought. It started with little things, unexplained absences, sudden bursts of laughter at late-night texts, and the way she began guarding her phone like it was a piece of state-level evidence. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself she deserved privacy, that I was being paranoid. But over time, her girls' nights became more frequent, and each time her explanations felt rehearsed, flimsy. The tipping point came when she told me she was going on a week-long girls' trip with her old college friends. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but something in her eyes told me she was lying. She avoided my gaze when she said it, fiddled with her hair, and used her favorite trick, over-explaining. "We'll be in Florida near the beach. Don't worry, it's just us girls catching up like old times. You know how important friendships are to me." She sounded like a student reciting a memorized script. That night, after she fell asleep, I made a decision. I had never been the kind of man to snoop, but her growing distance had left me with no choice. I installed a tracking app on her phone. It wasn't difficult. She trusted me enough to leave her phone charging on the nightstand, and within minutes the software was quietly running in the background, hidden. The day she left, I watched her location on my phone. She told me she was headed to Florida. But the app showed otherwise. She boarded a flight all right, except it wasn't to Florida. It was to a small city in another state, only 2 hours away. I felt my stomach twist as I stared at the blinking dot on the screen. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. Maybe she lied because she was planning a surprise. Maybe she wanted some space. But the truth clawed its way forward. She wasn't with her friends. I called one of her college friends, a woman I'd met several times before. "Hey, just checking. Emma said you guys were having a reunion trip. I thought I'd surprise her with some flowers delivered to your hotel. Can you give me the address?" Her friend was silent for a moment before replying, "What reunion trip?" The blood drained from my face. That was all the confirmation I needed. My wife had lied to me. For the next 2 days, I tracked her. The app showed her staying at a hotel on the edge of the city. She never called, never checked in, just sent the occasional text saying she was having fun. Each word felt like poison. Finally, on the third night, I decided to see it with my own eyes. I drove down to the city, my heart pounding with every mile. I parked across from the hotel, sitting in the shadows, watching. And then, I saw her. Emma walked out of the lobby, her hand brushing against a man's. They laughed together, their faces glowing in the dim streetlight. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear, and she giggled like a teenager. Then, right there in the parking lot, she kissed him. Not a friendly peck, a full, passionate kiss. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. For a moment I wanted to burst out of the car to drag her away and scream at them both. But I didn't. Something inside me snapped, but not in the way you might think. Instead of rage, I felt an icy calm settle over me. If she wanted to betray me, then fine. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I watched them enter the hotel together, disappearing behind the glass doors. My heart hurt, but my mind was already working. That was the night I decided. This wasn't just about heartbreak. This was about revenge. I drove home, replaying the image of them kissing over and over in my mind. Every time I thought about it, the ice in my veins hardened. She thought she was clever, sneaking around behind my back. She thought she could fool me with lies. How about girls' trips? But I was done being her fool. For the next week, I gathered information. I tracked her every movement through the app, logged the places she visited, and even noted the time she returned to the hotel. It became clear this wasn't a fling. It was a full-blown affair. The man she was with wasn't just anyone either. Through some digging, I found out he was a regional manager at her company, married, with 2 kids. That was when my cold-blooded plan began to take shape. I could have confronted her. I could have exposed her to his wife, but I wanted something more permanent. Something that would leave both of them shattered in ways they never saw coming. I gathered evidence, Photos from my tracker's camera access, screenshots of her location data, and eventually pictures I took myself by following them discreetly. The puzzle was coming together, and I was careful with every piece. Emma returned home after her so-called girls' trip, acting as though nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, smiled, and handed me a souvenir t-shirt. "We had such a great time. The girls say hi." I forced a smile, nodded, and tucked the shirt into the drawer. Little did she know, her lies were already crumbling. Every night after she fell asleep, I worked quietly on my plan. The evidence was piling up, and I was methodical about it. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want shouting or tears. I wanted silence. I wanted the kind of revenge that would gut her without me raising my voice once. She had no idea her perfect little secret was already mine to expose. But the best part? She wouldn't even see it coming. When Emma came back from her so-called girls' trip, she slipped right back into her routine like nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee in the morning, kissed me on the cheek before heading to work, and laughed as she texted late into the night. To anyone else, she was the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect picture of happiness. But I knew, and because I knew, every smile she gave me felt hollow, every touch burned like acid. Still, I never let it show. I smiled back. I played my role. If she thought she was clever, she had no idea how far ahead of her I really was. I spent the next several weeks quietly gathering more evidence. The tracker app had become my lifeline. Every time she told me she was staying late at work, I'd check the app and see her car parked at the same hotel. Every time she claimed she was out with friends, I'd watch her dot move to restaurants and bars across town where her lover would conveniently appear. I started keeping a journal, logging her lies against the truth I saw on my screen. Dates, times, places. It was all there. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was methodical, patient. She thought she was playing me, but I was writing the script of her downfall. One night, as she sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, I casually asked, "So how's Melissa? You two still talking since your trip?" Emma looked up, surprised. Then she nodded quickly. "Oh, yeah. Melissa's great. She just got a new job, actually. We were catching up about it last week." I smiled and nodded, even though I already knew she hadn't seen Melissa in months. It was almost comical how easily the lies rolled off her tongue. But the more I watched her, the more I realized. This wasn't just about her betrayal. This was about the life she had stolen from me. For 12 years I had been faithful, supportive, and loving, and in return she gave me deceit. She took my loyalty for granted, and now she was going to learn what it meant to lose everything. My first step was research. I learned everything I could about her lover. His name was David. He was a regional manager at her company, married with 2 kids. His wife, Rachel, was a schoolteacher. From the outside, they looked like the perfect family, just like us. But behind closed doors, he was sneaking off to cheap hotel rooms with my wife. I started small. I created an anonymous email account and sent Rachel a single photo. David and Emma kissing in the hotel parking lot. No message, no explanation, just the picture. I knew that one image would raise more questions than any words could. A day later, I tracked Emma's phone and saw her dot sitting at the hotel again. I parked across the street, watching. An hour passed, then 2. And just when I was about to leave, I saw headlights pulling up. A woman stepped out of the car, Rachel. She stormed into the lobby, her posture stiff, her face hard with fury. 10 minutes later, I watched as she dragged David out by the arm, shouting loud enough for me to hear across the street. Emma followed, her face pale, panicked. The 3 of them argued right there in the parking lot, Rachel pointing a finger in Emma's face before throwing her hands up in disgust and leaving. I smiled. The cracks were forming. When Emma came home that night, she looked shaken. She didn't say a word, just went straight to bed. I lay next to her, pretending to be asleep, listening to her toss and turn. For once, she wasn't in control, and it was only the beginning. Over the next week, I escalated. Using the evidence I had collected, I created a file, dates, photos, even screenshots of their texts that I'd intercepted through the app. I sent copies to her company's HR department, anonymously, of course. Affairs between managers and employees? That was against company policy. Emma had no idea that the storm was brewing. She carried on as usual, unaware that her job, her reputation, and her carefully crafted lies were about to come crashing down. One morning, as she was getting dressed for work, she turned to me and said, "You know, we should plan a trip soon, just the two of us. Maybe rekindle some things." I almost laughed. Rekindle? After everything she had done? But I just nodded. That sounds nice. Later that day, while she sat in a meeting, HR summoned her and David into separate offices. I imagined the look on her face as they presented her with the evidence. By the time she got home, she was quiet, withdrawn. I didn't ask her about it. I wanted her to stew in the silence. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I wanted her to feel what I felt the night I watched her kiss him in that parking lot. I wanted her to taste betrayal, to live in the uncertainty she had forced on me. And the only way to do that was to pull the rug out from under her entire world. So I began the final stage of my plan. I quietly moved money into a separate account. I met with a lawyer and explained everything, showing him the evidence I had collected. He looked at me with a mix of sympathy and admiration. "Most men would have blown up by now," he said. "But you? You've built an airtight case. She won't see a dime more than what's fair, and even that's generous." Every document, every photo, every piece of proof was lined up like dominoes, ready to fall. And then, one evening, Emma walked in the door, her face pale and drawn. "I need to talk to you," she said quietly. I closed my laptop and looked up, masking my excitement with concern. "What's wrong?" She hesitated. "Something happened at work. They found out about me and David. HR suspended us pending an investigation. He might lose his job. I might too." I nodded slowly, pretending to process it. Inside, I was on fire with satisfaction. It was working. Emma reached for my hand. "I know I've been distant lately. I want to make things right. Maybe we can take that trip I mentioned?" Her touch, once familiar, now felt like poison. I forced myself not to recoil. Instead, I gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Of course, we'll figure it out." What she didn't know was that I had already figured it out. By the time I was finished, she wouldn't have a job, a lover, or a marriage. She would be left with nothing but the cold reality of her choices. And the best part? She still believed she was in control. But soon, very soon, she would realize the truth. The control had been mine all along. The next few days were almost surreal to me. Emma floated around the house, clearly distracted and nervous, though she tried to mask it with her usual smiles and routines. I could see her anxiety boiling just beneath the surface. Every time her phone buzzed, she'd tense up. Sometimes she'd step into another room to answer, speaking in hushed tones. Other times she'd stare at the screen for long moments before shoving the phone into her bag. It didn't take a genius to guess who she was talking to. David. And I knew exactly what was happening. He was panicking, trying to hold his marriage together after Rachel had stormed into that hotel. He was trying to protect his job after HR started digging into their relationship. He was scrambling for control, while Emma was clinging to him like a lifeline. I didn't even have to interfere anymore. Their little affair was crumbling under its own weight, but I wasn't satisfied yet. Watching them collapse wasn't enough. I wanted Emma to experience the same suffocating helplessness she had forced on me. So, I stayed quiet, patient, cold. One night, as she sat across from me at dinner, she said softly, "You've been different lately, quieter. I know I've made mistakes, but I don't want to lose us. Maybe this suspension will actually be a blessing. Maybe I can start over somewhere else, and we can—" She stopped mid-sentence when she saw the look in my eyes. I hadn't said a word, but my silence said enough. Her fork clattered against the plate, and she excused herself to the bedroom. I heard the faint sound of muffled sobs. For the first time in years, I felt no sympathy. The next morning, she dressed in business clothes anyway, even though she wasn't supposed to go to work. She grabbed her keys and bag, kissed me half-heartedly on the cheek, and said, "I'm going to meet with HR. Wish me luck." I nodded. Good luck. But I already knew the outcome, because the night before, I had sent HR one final email from my anonymous account, containing everything. Every date, every text message, every hotel receipt, every piece of proof I had carefully collected. They couldn't ignore it. They couldn't sweep it under the rug. When she came home later that day, her face was ashen, her shoulders slumped, her eyes red. She didn't even speak, just went straight upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and collapsed on the bed. Her career, gone. David's too. But that was only the first domino. Over the next week, I began moving with precision. I met with my lawyer again, handed over the complete file, and signed the papers to initiate divorce proceedings. I wanted everything documented. The affair, the misconduct, the damage. There would be no negotiation. The lawyer nodded in approval. "She'll try to fight it," he warned. "But you have an airtight case. You've set this up perfectly. She won't walk away with much, if anything." That was exactly the plan. Meanwhile, I quietly shifted my finances. The joint account? I emptied half into my personal savings. The mortgage? Already refinanced in my name alone. The car she drove? Technically registered under me. Piece by piece, I stripped away the comforts she thought she owned, and she didn't notice. Emma was too busy drowning in her own mess to realize how quickly the ground was vanishing beneath her feet. One evening, she sat down next to me on the couch. Her face was pale, her voice shaking. "I know things haven't been right between us. I made mistakes, huge mistakes. But please, can we try again? I don't care about the job. I don't care about David. I just want us." Her words might have carried weight once, but now they were meaningless. I had seen the real her, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, and no amount of begging could undo it. I looked at her calmly and said, "It's too late, Emma." She froze. "What do you mean?" I stood up, walked to my desk, and pulled out the thick folder my lawyer had prepared. I set it on the coffee table in front of her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Page after page of documents, photos, evidence, all laid bare. Divorce papers neatly clipped on top. Her face drained of color. This isn't happening," she whispered. "It already has," I replied, my voice even. "You wanted freedom. You wanted excitement. Well, now you can have it, all on your own." She burst into tears, clutching the papers to her chest as if holding them tighter would somehow erase the truth. But there was no escaping it. Over the next several days, Emma's world completely unraveled. Rachel officially filed for divorce from David, citing infidelity. Their kids refused to speak to him. His career was destroyed, his reputation shredded. And Emma, without her job, without her lover, and now without her marriage, she had nothing left but the consequences of her choices. She called me dozens of times a day, leaving voicemails filled with sobs, apologies, and desperate pleas. I never answered. One night, she showed up at the house. She pounded on the door, crying, shouting my name. "Please, just talk to me. Please, we can fix this." I stood just on the other side of the door, silent. Eventually, her cries turned to quiet whimpers, then silence. When I finally looked out the window, she was gone. For the first time in months, I felt peace. But I wasn't finished. Because revenge isn't just about breaking someone down. It's about ensuring they never forget the lesson. So, I began the final move. The one that would make sure Emma knew exactly what she had lost, and that she could never, ever get it back. And when the moment came, it would be more devastating than anything I had done so far. She thought she had already hit rock bottom, but she hadn't seen anything yet. The morning of the court hearing arrived, and Emma looked like a shadow of the woman she used to be. Her once polished confidence was gone, replaced with hollow eyes and trembling hands. She tried to smile at me across the room, but I didn't return it. When the judge read the terms of the divorce, full house ownership to me, majority custody of the kids, her alimony request denied, Emma broke down in open court. She wept into her hands as whispers spread across the benches. She had walked into this marriage thinking she had upgraded and walked out of it with nothing. Later that week, I threw a quiet gathering at my home. Close friends, family, and neighbors came to celebrate my fresh start. Laughter filled the house, kids ran through the yard, and the air felt light again. At one point, I noticed Emma standing at the edge of the driveway, staring in disbelief. She looked like she wanted to approach, but when she saw everyone around me smiling, supporting me, she turned and walked away, shoulders slumped. That was the last time I saw her in person. Over the next months, I rebuilt my life completely. I found someone new, not a rebound, not a distraction, but a genuine partner who valued loyalty, honesty, and trust. Every day felt like a reminder that I had survived the storm and come out stronger. Emma, on the other hand, couldn't escape her choices. Word of her affair had spread far. Former friends kept their distance. Her family voiced their disappointment, and jobs in her field quietly turned her away. She reached out occasionally, emails filled with regret asking for forgiveness. I never replied. My silence was louder than any words I could have spoken. And that was the greatest revenge of all. She had gambled everything for a fling, and lost it all. Meanwhile, I had gained peace, strength, and a life free of lies. The look on her face that final day, when she realized she was truly erased from my world, will stay with me forever. Absolutely priceless.